Welcome, welcome, welcome.
A notable welcome to all you music lovers.
To something that
I like to call
Journey
to the stage. It's all about music.
Music.
And more.
music.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back
your host.
Your host.
and our dad.
Brian.
Frasier.
Have fun.
Hey everyone, welcome to Journey to the Stage. This is Brian Frasier, and I'm really glad you tuned in today. This is a very special episode of Journey to the Stage. My guest today is Dan Murphy. Dan is a Grammy Award-winning musician, vocalist, and songwriter. So, is a huge fan of Soul Asylum and Golden Smog, both of which Dan was a founding member of. As soon as I learned that Dan was coming out of his self-imposed music retirement to make some new music, I knew that I wanted to have a chat with him. Dan's new band is called the Scarlet Goodbye, where he has teamed up with gifted singer-songwriter Jeff Arundel. They recorded a new album that is out now. It's called Hope's Eternal, and I can tell you that after spending a few weeks with this album, it is a really great one that you'll want to listen to. Dan and I will be playing a couple songs from the album so you can hear for yourself how great they are. Before we get into that, if you could take 30 seconds and like or follow wherever you're listening to this podcast, or leave a rating or review, it's a huge help for an indie podcaster like myself, and I'd be ever so grateful. So thank you for doing that. And if you're a regular listener to Journey to the Stage, you'll notice that this conversation maybe sounds a little bit different. This chat with Dan was recorded as a phone call on a single track, so I don't have the clarity of sound that I normally would have on a typical episode. But this is a wonderful conversation that I truly loved, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Here's my chat with Dan Murphy.
All right, well, Dan, thank you for joining me, and welcome to Journey to the Stage. And how's life treating you these days?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've been kind of busy again. I took a long break from music, and I'm finding that I'm putting a record out in a couple weeks, which was probably the last thing I would have thought of myself doing a few years ago, but I'm excited about it. I'm kind of entering the fray again, as it were, you know?
I'm sure that keeps you pretty busy, and as you mentioned in our pre-chat, you're buying a house, so you've got a lot on your plate.
A lot of adulting.
It's so overrated, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about the release of your brand new album, and we're going to play a couple cuts from it here in a few minutes. But one of the things that makes this album so impactful is, at least in my opinion, is what's kind of led up to it. And so we're going to walk through, just touch on Soul Asylum days, Golden Smog days, and then we'll spend the bulk of our time talking about the album. So you co-founded Soul Asylum in 81, you and Dave and Carl. You were like a teenager.
Yeah, we were all kids. My mom went away she went on a sabbatical to Harvard, and I think I was 18. I started living at Carl's house, and Carl and I had seen Iggy Pop at the Leamington Hotel that night. We wrote a song like when we got home called Planet Zero. Carl didn't play an instrument yet, but that didn't really stop us. So we just decided to start a band, and Dave was in another band from like West High School that was called the Shits with a Z, and I tried to get him over to my side, but at first he played drums with us. We were called Loud Fast Rolls. Yeah. We were kind of notorious also-rans, but we had a lot of fun, you know?
Yeah. Long before Runaway Train broke for you guys, you were together for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we started, I think our first record came out in 83. We signed to Twin Tone Records over a pitcher of beer in Madison. We opened for the Replacements at a show, and their manager, Peter Jesperson, signed us, and we made, I think, 3 or 4 records for them, and then we got signed to A&M in the mid-'80s, and after that, we kind of broke up for a while, and then we signed with Columbia, and the first record we made for them was kind of wildly successful for a little bit.
Such a neat story in that.
Yeah, I mean, when Grave Dancers came out, we were like 10 or 11 years into our career, which is crazy, right?
Yeah, but I'm glad you guys persevered, and that thing just broke. That you guys won a Grammy for that.
You know who accepted our Grammy for us that night?
Who's that?
Meatloaf.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is, it's probably inside, but they tell you that you won like that day, so I knew we won, and I was super excited about it. Yeah, and Dave wasn't in New York. I was at Radio City that year, and I didn't want to sit in the TV seats because, like, you know, like I'm a bad actor. Like they'd be looking at me and I'd probably be laughing because I fucking already knew I won. So I went with Tabitha Soren, who was a VJ at MTV, and Wayne, the singer in the Flaming Lips. That was my party that night.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, it was super exciting, and it kind of changed our world for a while. I mean, I think we were all really proud of that record and that track in particular. The video that we didn't have much to do with really was the thing that put us on the map, I think.
Well, it's very artistically done. I mean, what a ride that must have been for you guys. Because, you're still quite young. You're touring all over. You're selling a huge amount of albums. Grammy. I mean, was that just insane to live through?
Yeah, it seemed like, I don't know, like in hindsight, like it kind of feels like when you're on one of those people walker things at an airport that's like at the track that's moving. It's like that. And then when you step off that, it feels really jolting to you when you're like on solid ground. That's very much what like being in a band for like those 5 or 6 years felt like. You were always on the track that was, like the elevator moving you forward.
Man, that's just so crazy because there would, particularly in the United States and Europe, everybody knew who Soul Asylum was because it wasn't just Runaway Train. You guys had so many great songs.
Yeah, I mean, the A&M stuff, there's, a couple like Cartoon and Sometimes We Return. We thought we could maybe make some headway there. But, it was kind of a different time, and I feel like we were kind of on hiatus, and I heard Nevermind, and I was like, that could be something, and I think they signed a weird label sort of. But it was so weird, it like kind of came full circle. And then a band that everybody respected was Soul Asylum, and like we had, I think Runaway Train's a beautiful song, but it's a fucking ballad, which was so, we like kind of bad timing, sort of,
Well, it is. I know what you mean because it doesn't truly represent, like when I think of Soul Asylum, I think of, some more of the gritty stuff, the harder edge stuff, but yeah.
And I didn't write that song, Dave, did I? I mean, I think it's just a beautiful composition. It's really earnest and lovely lyrics, earth and sky, the whole thing. I love the track, but it was like kind of like an anomaly for us almost, right? Yeah,
there were other bands who go through that. I remember when Extreme broke in like the late 80s.
More than words, right?
Yeah, it's like everybody
power
knows
ballad,
that song, but they're a rock band. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
man, and how cool it is because not many bands get to have a multi-platinum album, but that's super cool that you guys do. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we were I guess we weren't really surprised. By that point, I think we were pretty good. We had toured a lot, and we were a pretty well-rounded machine that really had played a lot of shows under a lot of experiences. We'd sucked a bunch. We played great a bunch. So we've been kind of, when that kind of happened, we were kind of like, told you bitches, because everybody was kind of, like kind of saw us as also-rans,
Yeah. And for 21 years, I mean, you were with that band a long time. I don't think I've done anything for 21 years other than live.
Add a decade, dude. 31 years.
Oh, yeah, I guess I can't count.
That is insane. Yeah, that's the longest thing I've ever committed to in my life, for sure, by like 20 years as well. It wasn't all super fun. It was kind of fun on the way up. It was kind of fun when you're up, and then on the way down, it's kind of humbling. So that's, I guess it's like, the circle of life right there.
Well, it reminds me of a song we were just talking about before we were recording. Sometimes you're up, sometimes
you're down. Yeah. With my face all laid to waste by years of wine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What a lyric.
That's pretty good. You go, Garrow, birthday boy. Garrow Larson, birthday boy today. That's his poetic musings right there. Happy birthday, Gary Loris.
Happy birthday, Gary. Yeah, I just put up a post. In this is my opinion, I consider him to be one of the best songwriters in American music history. So that's just my opinion of Gary. I just love his writing.
Yeah, the crazy thing about like being in the smog, it's like go to a recording studio, and I'm used to Dave singing, which is super nice, and my singing, which is more of an acquired taste. To listen to like Gary Lewis or Jeff Tweedy when they open up their mouth to sing to them, it's like holy, it's like a whole different thing,
Yeah, no, I love Gary. So for those who don't know Golden Smog, I mean, this was a super group consisting of members from different bands who would, get together and record when you had time away from your regular bands. And so I know the initial lineup was pretty fluid, but settled into you, Gary Loris and Perlman from the Jayhawks, of course, and Jody Stevens from Big Star, Greg Johnson from Run Westy. I always have trouble with that one. And, of course, Tweedy from Wilco.
Yeah.
That's quite a lineup.
Yeah, we made a few records, and I think Weird Tales was like kind of the one where we sort of peaked. I mean, I think the songwriting was pretty good on that, and Gary played piano on a bunch of it, and it was fun, you know. Like touring was really fun. We were well received. Yeah. It just got to be a thing where, you know, depending on how your other career is going, like that's about as much attention as you want to give Golden Smog, because I mean, you know, everybody was so busy, and like, you know, careers ebb and flow. So when mine was ebbing, I'd like the flow of the Golden Smog, but usually they were flowing at that time. So it was like really hard to figure out how that band fit into your life cycle and your, you know, you're paying your rent and you know, getting your musical satisfaction. But I'm very proud of that, the work that we did, and I love those guys, all of them. They're a pain in the ass, but they're really good guys.
Well, I didn't realize that Dave Perner was part of the first album. I didn't know this until I was digging into my research a little bit.
He played drums, and then he started to have like hearing problems, like tinnitus and stuff, and he was very concerned about playing drums. And he's like, "What if I find you a drummer? Is that going?" I was like, "Sure." So he got us like Chris Mars, which is pretty cool. And he played on the first EP. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of, we started that. We did a lot of really bad cover bands. And we'd be like Baldy, Pills, Hash, and Guns or something. You know, we play like just a bunch of, we had like all these one-offs, and it kind of turned into Golden Smog with the same kind of like flying attitude, you know?
Well, as I mentioned, I got to see the Another Fine Day tour at the Fillmore in San Francisco, which is such a great venue. Great show. Jesse was with you guys on violin. But I was thinking, and it's been like 17 years or so since the last Golden Smog album. That's a long time.
Really long time, man. It's time waits for no one, I guess. But man, that's, you know, I think about like even Grave Dancers that came out like 30 years ago. That's insane.
It is. Time flies. What happened to us?
yeah. Do you up for evaluation for sure?
Yeah. Do you think, I've asked Gary this question too, just after shows. I'll tell you what he said after I get your thoughts. But do you think there could be another Golden Smog album at some point?
I think we could do that. I mean, the thing with the Golden Smog is, I say this lovingly, but we don't get along super great, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that are the guys, sort of, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we get along fine, but I think if we were like a band that toured a lot and like spent a lot of time on that, I don't know how it would go. You know, I mean, it's super fun when we do it, but it's always pretty chaotic as well. The last shows at First Avenue weren't chaotic. I think everybody brought their relaxed resume in, and it was actually really it was just a great, we played 2 shows at First Avenue, and just a few months ago, it was just really just the whole house was just singing along. It was about as good as a couple shows could go.
Well, I know. I wish I lived closer. I would have absolutely loved to have seen you guys. I know that you guys played for your 57th birthday party. So, and I was thinking in about 5 years I'll turn 57, and so hopefully you guys will play.
Yeah, that was kind of the start of it all, you know. It was like I was just kind of fucking around, and I looked at this room that was right next to the place that I was living at in this basement, and my friend Jen, I was with Jen Whittier, we should do a show here. And so I called Gary on a whim, and I thought for sure he'd say no, and he's like, yeah, I'm into that. It'd be fun. And that was kind of, all of a sudden it was on. But that was really fun too, because people haven't seen it in so long.
It has been, and it's just crazy to me. It's like, well, when I asked Gary about it, I'm trying to remember which tour it was after we just had a chance to chat after one of the shows, and I asked him, and he said, I would never say no, but he basically said a lot of us live in different places now. We just don't sit around and jam around like we used to.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of it, you know.
Yeah,
that is a lot of it. I think, you can do records, where we could just send stuff, via emails, music to each other and kind of work on them independently. But kind of the Smog was all getting together in a room. We played a lot of different instruments like piano and guitars, mandolin, so everybody would just switch up half the stuff. Craig played bass on, some of it Perlman, some of it Tweedy, so it's kind of nice to do it like ensemble style that way.
Yeah. Would you guys typically record live?
We would. The record before, down by the old Mainstream, a lot of that, I would say Glad and Sorry is pretty much completely alive. Well, I guess the vocals weren't live, but I think Tweedy was probably singing backgrounds in playing acoustic. But that's pretty much, Gary and I were playing electrics. I think we kept all of the tracking guitars on that are on the record. But I think we did that record. Weird Tales, we spent a month But the one before it, I think we did it in 5 days at Pachyderm, that Down by the Ocean. And there's good stuff on there. I mean, it was really, we were doing 4 songs a day.
That's insane. That's insane. Well, I mentioned, just as before we were recording that, Weird Tales turning 25. Hopefully we can get together and do a little commemoration of it, because it's a great album. It's so fun, so incredibly fun.
Weird Tales wasn't as much fun to make as the one before it, but I think it's a better record because I think everybody was kind of invested in it, and everybody was like, I don't know, I can't remember. We did that in Memphis, so everybody was like kind of commuting there. We were living there, but it wasn't at any one person's house, so like we kind of all went home to the same house we were living in, and it seemed like it was a long time we were there. It might have been 5 weeks or something, which is a long time for the Smog to make a record. We took it more seriously, and I think it's pretty proud of that album. There's some good music on there.
Well, it shows, because it's a remarkable album, and I really love it. And I think, everything seems like it's another step up from even the greatness that came before it. So I can see it.
We peaked early. Just teasing.
Story of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
So 2012, you kind of step away from music for the most part. And I remember reading about this back when it happened. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
You were focused on running your business and stuff like that. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But you kind of put yourself on a little bit of a hiatus, musically speaking.
For a long time, yeah. I just was pretty sick of it, and I feel like it's not natural for guys to hang out for 30 years with each other and kind of be, it just becomes, I don't know, it's like I wasn't having a ton of fun. I had respect for the band. I had respect for Dave as a writer and a performer, and we did a lot of great work together. We just weren't really gelling with each other or having any fun at all, and it was really apparent to everybody that worked for us. Like, they'd be really nervous. And I go, oh, don't mind that. We just don't really talk to each other. It's no big thing. It was like a working relationship, Yeah. But we still kind of gelled well in the studio I think that record that we made at the end of Soul Asylum, for me at least, the Silver Lining, I think it's one of our best records. I love that record, actually.
Great writing. Fantastic writing, actually.
Yeah, it was really fun to had beautiful harmonies on it. It just has a really realized kind of sheen to it that at that point in my life, and still I kind of find appealing somehow.
Do I remember this right, that you donated, I think, maybe like a Les Paul to one of the music? Yeah, so is that still there, or did you ask for it back?
Well, they did this First Avenue show. Like, they made a amalgamation of First Avenue. They had all these old videos, and they put my fucking guitar in this battered road case in this huge, huge, huge showcase, like next to Prince's Star guitar and stuff. I was like humbled by it. I was just like, but yeah, I had 2 kind of identical guitars that I used, and I kept one. And I was like, I don't want to sell this. It's been like such a good friend to me. I just rather donate it, So I donated it to the Minnesota Historical Society, and they made it a big part of their First Avenue feature that they did. And I was super humbled to like walk in there and see my shit next to Prince's. I kind of was in the same business that he is. That's weird,
The color of it, was it gold? Do I remember that right?
It was a gold top, a Les Paul. Yeah, I had 2 of them. Yeah. That I bought in the 80s, and I think, I don't know, at the time they were like, $400, but they were just, they were indestructible, and I had 2 that were pretty much identical, and I used them for hundreds, if not low thousands of Soul Asylum and Smog shows, so I feel, it was a good final resting place for that one,
Yeah, sounds so ominous, but that is super cool. So, what made you come out of your quasi-retirement? Was meeting Jeff part of that, or were you kind of getting your toe back in the water before that?
I wasn't, actually. I wasn't. I went to kind of a holiday party, and my new friend, Jeff, I just moved, and I was kind of going through some personal shit in my life. I was just getting divorced, and kind of everything kind of blew up, and he took me up to his recording studio, and I was like, I remember these. I hadn't been to one in like 6 or 7 years, and he played me a couple tracks that he was recording up there, and I was like, dude, you're recording this shit up here? Because it's just like very humble studio with like wainscoting, and it's in an attic, So I said, well, maybe we should talk around. And then we started getting together and writing, and the first song that we wrote is on the Scarlet Goodbye record. It's called Paris, and I thought it came up pretty good.
Oh, yeah. It's a good song.
Yeah, so I was kind of intrigued by it because we didn't know each other very well. We're really from different backgrounds, but musically it seemed like he has a finger-picking style that I've never really heard before or played with. It just kind of complemented each other in some way.
Well, that's cool that you guys went from, hey, nice to meet you, to let's write some songs
and
together.
It's funny because I hadn't played in so long. I mean, my chops were just terrible. I mean, I could still hear
calluses,
stuff in my
right?
head. No, I'm no calluses, no muscle memory. And so, Jeff, at one point, he looked at me and he was like, dude, who played on Soul Asylum records? Because there's no way you did. I mean, that's how bad I
meant
got.
that as a compliment.
Well, but I think he was just giving me some good-natured shit. But I had really taken off. I mean, I probably hadn't picked up a guitar more than a dozen times in 6 years.
Which must be kind of strange to be so tied to an instrument. I mean, it really is the focal point of so much of your life, and then you're kind of done with it. But you know what? I think a lot of artists, a lot of musicians get there. They need a break.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like the smartest decision I ever made, just to not do it anymore because it wasn't bringing me any joy. And, you know, touring is, I'm finding out with the Scarlet Goodbye, which we're kind of launching a new record, my least favorite part of all of it is like playing shows. I mean, I still enjoy it. I mean, I love recording. I love rehearsing. But it's like, you know, just to do that, I think like I probably played First Avenue 125 times. So that's just obscene, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not really a brag. It's just, that's kind of a lot of, it's a lot of like preparation and making sure that you're up for that and you're going to be good that night, you know?
Sure. Do you differentiate the actual playing as opposed to the drudgery of the travel and the packing in and packing out and all that stuff?
Well,
like
I
if
didn't
you could
realize,
just play, would it be different?
Yeah, I didn't realize how good I had it because like we had, you know, a roadie, like you'd go to sound check and your amp would be set up beautifully and your mic would be on and your guitar would be in tune, but like it's like totally starting over, you know. So I wasn't as respectful as I could have been to how good the organization that works with Soul Asylum was. Always a pro bunch of people helping us out, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably true of all of us. We don't really appreciate what we have until
it's gone, yeah. And then you're going, I got to bring my old amps up there, tune up myself, hook up my, you know. So, yeah, it's not, I'm not really complaining. It's just like,
no.
Really, sure. It's an enlightening perspective to have. Let's just say that.
Yeah. You don't have a guy. You're like, where's the guy? Where's the guy that you see here?
Where's my guy, you know?
So you and Jeff come from, like you mentioned, pretty varied backgrounds. How do you think that complements and impacts the way that you guys wrote and recorded this project?
Well, I don't think he knew much about my band. He probably heard the one about the train and a couple other ones, I bet. And I knew of him, but I've never heard his music. I thought he had an interesting voice, speaking and singing, and I noticed right away that he was really good at finger picking, like on acoustic guitar. And I think, I don't know, we just started writing together. And the first thing we came up with was Paris. And then he's like, well, I got a bass player and drummer I want to track with that I'd never even met. And I was like so blown away by those guys. I think we probably recorded that song in an hour and they'd never even heard the music.
Wow, nice.
So it just seemed like it was really cohesive and it's kind of razor sharp. And it just was really easy. Like, you know, we got tracks in this little studio. I don't think we ever spent more than 3 hours recording 2 songs. Like every time we get together to record, we'd hit 2. And we'd be there for 3 or 4 hours rather than 3 or 4 weeks, which was oftentimes the case, you know?
That is pretty rare, I would imagine.
Yeah, some kind of level of intuition or something. And plus, we're all sitting in this little recording studio, like making eye contact with each other. And most of the time I didn't have headphones on. So it really felt kind of like interpersonal in a way that you don't get when you're in a big studio in LA or something, you know?
Well, that's really cool. Let's pause for a second. We're going to play the song Angel Dust. I think you're on lead on this song, right? You got lead vocals?
Yeah, I think there was a bunch of harmonies in the choruses, but that's the only one that was sort of a riff I had floating around from like Soul Asylum, that opening guitar line. Yeah. And that's the only thing that I kind of revisited. I think I used to have a song that was a demo. I think it might have been called like The Only Game in Town or something like that. I never ended up using it for anything. And then Jeff was like, we kind of need like a happy, bright summer. All this shit was written during COVID, so it's all pretty dreary, you know? You got anything happy? So this is my attempt to write a happy, like poppy, hooky love song, sort of.
Well, it's a great one. Let's listen to it. This is Angel Dust by the Scarlet Goodbye on their brand new, just released album titled Hope's Eternal.
Is it starting now?
So, man, I'm a sucker for jangly guitar rock, so this one had me from hello. So really, really nicely done.
Well, thank you. It was actually really fun to record. I just kind of went for, like, you know, I kind of went for a whole different guitar sound. I'm playing like Telecasters mostly, and I'm going for like kind of vintage amps that are clean rather than distorted. We really worked on harmonies on this record. That's my favorite part of music, is harmony singing. Like going to see a band that can harmony. I just think that's where the magic is for me.
I'm with you there. And when you hear people that can do it well, when you've got three parts that are,
I mean, I just saw Sunbolt a few months ago, and you know, it's Jay with a bunch of guys I didn't, but God, their harmony thing was so beautiful. You know, the whole place was just like, you know, it's breathtaking.
That's so cool. You know, I actually just discovered a band. You might like them. They're called Blue Water Highway. And
are they LA band?
They are from Texas, and they are really, really good. The singer is a trained opera singer, and he's just got a remarkable voice, but they do tons of three parts, and just really good stuff. So, and
cool.
Talk about they'll be joining me here in April, but super cool. So you and Jeff wrote this album. I mean, from the time you started, because I think I read you guys started writing in 2020.
Yeah, the January of the pandemic year. Yeah, I mean, it was right in the heart of all that. And the first 3 or 4 things we did Paris, and then we did one called Fresh New Hell that I was starting to write. That was like March of the first year of COVID. It was just kind of like right on TV. I would never write that song now because it's kind of out there. But at that point in time, it was like, you know, like when that shit started, it'd be like 2 minutes of the news cycle. You know, there's this virus that people are getting afflicted with, and then a month later, it's like, you know, 23 and a half hours of the news cycle is that. It was rough in Minneapolis because later, you know, that whole George Floyd thing and the whole city just erupted. I mean, it was just really tense to live here. It was just insane.
A crazy time. Man,
so I think a lot of that's on the record because you're writing with that as, you know, your cityscape or whatever. It just seems like it was kind of like, if you can't write a good record now, you should probably never try to write one because it just seemed like it was the time.
So COVID obviously played a big part in maybe did you guys write then separately? And
no, we kind of were a little pod because we started like in January. So we had a little pod of the 4 of us and Jeff's wife. Like we were all, you know, we started kind of right before it happened. We were like, you know, I think at that point in time we'd, you know, been in close quarters. It didn't make any sense for us to really be concerned other than, you know, with that little group or pod. But we, of course, all got it at varying times. You know, I think I had it twice or 3 times. But c'est la vie, right?
C'est la vie. Yeah, I'm there too. I've got my card punched a few times.
Yeah.
So I got to say that I love the album cover. I'm a sucker for good album art. In fact, I don't know, and maybe I'm kind of weird, but there are lots of albums I've bought for bands I didn't even know that I've bought just because I like the cover. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, if someone has a cover that's that beautiful, the music has to be good. And almost, you know, universally, I was not disappointed. And I love the album cover that you guys came up with. Tell me about that, because it was a great picture.
Well, it's a Spanish artist I don't know very much about, and I found the image on Instagram.
Nice.
I think the title is Hope's Eternal. It's a lyric in one of the songs, and Soul Asylum used to do that a lot, like Grave Dancers Union is a lyric, and I think Without a Trace. But I just thought it was kind of like, you know, you gotta like to start over a music career after being dormant for so long. I mean, like that to me like says Hope's Eternal. You still gotta, you know, believe in that as something that you have a knack for it at worst, you know. But I like the artwork. I think it's just beautiful image, and I don't know, it kind of sums up the whole experiment, I guess, pretty much. I mean, a woman sitting there at a wheel, and a knife thrower is throwing knives behind her, you know?
It's a cool picture, and the colors, you know, the colors are magical. They're just incredible.
How much orange can you handle? You have to ask yourself that, right?
Yeah. So would you say now that you've maybe found some joy in playing? Is it something you're having fun with now?
Yeah. I mean, I've never wrote a record before either. I mean, I wrote songs on records, but you know, Jeff and I wrote a record. I mean, I think we recorded 4 other songs. We've written 16 songs in this time.
Wow.
And so, I've never really done that. I've never like saw something through to the completion of that, and I always felt like I enjoyed being the guy that just was asked to contribute a song or two here and there. That was like not a lot of pressure or like intrigue, you know.
Well, because with Soul Asylum, Dave was the primary writer. Is that right?
Yep. And towards the end, I would keep songs that I was writing mostly for the Golden Smog, and that was a lot of like the record company, you know, guy, Donnie, I know, who's a good guy, but he kind of saw Dave as a frontman, and it was very geared for that in that band, which is fine, you know.
Yeah, and then with Smog, you know, obviously you contributed several songs, many songs, but you've got a room full of writers, and so that would be, so that's cool. I could see where you would be now finding some great satisfaction. This is a project I'm throughout the DNA of this album, and that is pretty cool. I'm glad you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real different thing we tried to do. I think we tried to, you know, Jeff was trying to bring me out a little bit, like, you know, and not be so guarded in my writing and stuff, and be more comfortable with my singing voice. And you know, he kind of really pushed me to like write things like Charity, that, you know, and just the weirder songs on the record. And I think for Jeff, he'd never really been in a rock band so like, to see his eyes light up, like as we were tracking the song Sandy, I was like, it's like a kid in a candy store. It's like he's just like jovial. It was so cool to see. I guess that's kind of the power of music right there, you know?
It is. It totally is. I want to listen to one more cut. This is Panic and Blame. Is Jeff on lead vocals on this one?
Yeah, Jeff sings this one, and a bunch of us sing harmonies. And yeah, it's kind of a little story about like a marriage dissolution, and then there's a club called the Killing Fields in the song, and you know, the guy leaves his ex-wife's name at the door, but she doesn't show up. It's like one of those kind of things.
Cool. Well, let's give this a listen.
It's new than night on a killing
Dan, it's a wonderful song. I have to say that there isn't a single song on this album that I skip. It's really all very, very remarkable. So nicely done by you and Jeff.
Thank you so much. I love the chorus on that. It's really a tuneful bunch of guys singing along in harmony, and kind of makes me happy, even though it's sort of a sad song.
Well, that's the beauty of music. You can have the saddest lyrics, but sung so beautifully, and it's kind of like the velvet glove over the hard punch. You know what I mean?
The Leonard Cohen thing, the minor key, the major lift, or whatever that song is. It's like that's
right.
So poignant, Yeah, we do a lot of minor key stuff in this band. It's kind of, and we try to get to choruses, but it's just, again, I mean, it was such a weird time to be contemplative about words and music and your city that you grew up. It just seemed like it was time for us to take that seriously and really work on writing, just because it was really hard to make sense of here. It was just so convoluted being here that summer.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine. Now, you and Jeff have done some live shows. Are you guys going to have more to come?
We have 20 shows booked this summer. Yeah, we have a little record release on March 24th is our next, or 26th is our next one. So we're playing 150 to 350 seat venues and opening and doing co-bills with bands. So it really has been a lot of fun, and we're starting to get pretty well received already, which is really nice.
That's really cool.
I'd say we have 40 fans at this point, which is pretty good.
Well, your album is, it is just, you're not even fully released.
It's all just starting, absolutely, yeah. So we're doing some stuff. We have a little record label in place, and it's distributed through Universal Music Group, and we have a publicist and hired a radio promotion guy. So we're taking it somewhat seriously. I mean, I think I would love for the music to get out there and for people to like it or not like it, and just to have it be presented to them is important to me.
It really is a remarkable album, and I hope that everybody gets this. So tell us where people can get the album now, because when this airs,
it's going to be streaming on everything, like Pandora, Amazon, Apple Music. I think there's 4 tracks that are out right now. There's one called Rosary, there's Panic and Blame, Angel Dust, and one called Sandy. But everything else comes out on the 24th of March, and we also did a video for a song called The Ballad of Julianne. I'm really excited about that. It will be released that day as well.
Yeah, that's a great song. Might be my favorite on the album. It's a beautiful one. And so I'll put all of those links where people can
that'd be so great.
See the videos. Yeah,
I'll send you a link of that video too. If you put it on the podcast, that'd be fabulous.
Sure.
That'd be great. I'll send you a link that you can just copy and put on it. That's great.
Yeah, I'll add it to the notes. And you have vinyl coming out, is that right?
Vinyl, yeah, it's on Scarlet Red vinyl, yeah.
Beautiful.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
We have me one of those.
Yeah, man. Maybe be careful what you wish for. I might have to send you one out,
I probably would want to put that cover up someplace because it's so beautiful.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's been great chatting with you, so thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I don't want to get away before we talk about your business, your shop, your store.
Well, I have a business called Grapefruit Moon Gallery, and it started out I collected pinup art and calendar art, but what we primarily do is we sell artwork and paintings that were created for magazine covers or book illustrations or pinup calendars before there was color photography. So we deal in original art. There was a lot of calendar companies in St. Paul, big ones like Brown and Bigelow and Lewis stuff. So some of that stuff is around. And then we bought a photography archive from a female photographer named Bunny Yeager that was down in Miami. And so we have her archives, and we're selling negatives and contact sheets and color transparencies of like Betty Page and shit like that. So it's a pretty good side hustle.
That's cool. And you have a great online store. So I've actually been on it. So what's the URL for that? And I'll put that in the show notes as well, but so people can click on that.
Yeah, I mean, we sell on every format. Like we're on Etsy a little bit. We're on eBay a lot, and our seller name is Grapefruit Moon Gallery. We're on First Dibs, which is a site, and we have a designated website that's just www.grapefruitmoongallery.com, and that's kind of like a combination of everything that we do. But it is a good side hustle. I'm proud of the business, and it's been pretty, it's had some longevity, so we must be doing something right.
That is so cool. Well, I'm glad you're doing that. Dan, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. It's the first time we've ever talked. And, it's been great, man. I really appreciate your time.
You doing some prep work and being familiar with the record. That means a lot. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to hear this. And I I hope people that are listening to this podcast come and check out the band. We're going to do hopefully we'll do a little bit of touring in the fall as well. That's what we're hoping for. So
Beautiful.
come up and say hey if we're out somewhere and you're there. Nice to meet you. So thank you so much, all right?
Yeah, well, thank you, and I always encourage people, go out, see shows, buy some merch. This is how you keep indie art and great artists making music. And so thank you, everybody, for listening. Go out, get this album. You can like Journey to the Stage on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and on YouTube, and all the links that we've talked about today will be in the show notes. And special thanks again to our great guest today, Dan Murphy. So keep your bags packed and join us on our next Journey to the Stage. And that is a wrap.